Backstage tensions explode when Jungkook screams at Taehyung, but it's Jimin's unexpected reaction that leaves everyone in tears. What happened behind the curtains? You lied to all of us, Taehyung. The scream tore through the narrow corridor like a rip in velvet. Harsh, raw, final. Jungkook's voice, usually melodic and controlled on stage, cracked under the weight of fury, echoing through the cold, concrete walls of the backstage hallway like a shot. Taehyung flinched, not from fear, but from something deeper. Guilt. Maybe shame. Maybe both. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed above them, flickering like they, too, were unsure how to illuminate a moment this ugly. Around them, the staff froze. Stylists clutching makeup kits, sound crew gripping tangled cords, and managers with earpieces half-plugged stood caught mid-breath, as if they had wandered into a private war zone not meant for outsiders. Jimin stood between them, motionless, his fingers still wet with stage glitter, clenched into trembling fists at his sides. I didn't lie. Taehyung's voice was low, guttural, fighting to stay composed, but failing with each syllable. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. Jungkook spat, taking a step closer, his chest heaving, eyes wild with something more than just anger. You just didn't pick us. The weight of the accusation settled heavy in the air, denser than the fog machines still hissing from the stage. Sweat clung to their skin. The smell of hairspray, metal, and adrenaline created a dizzying cocktail. This wasn't just a fight. This was something that had been festering for too long, unspoken during rehearsals, hidden behind smiles in interviews, tucked away beneath harmonies that, until tonight, masked everything falling apart beneath the surface. Taehyung's expression twisted. Something about him looked older than a moment ago. Not in years, but in spirit. As if whatever Jungkook had just said had carved into him with the sharpness of truth. I tried to protect you, he whispered. Bullshit, Jungkook growled. You tried to protect yourself. Silence. Deafening. Painful. Then, without warning, Jimin stepped forward. His movement was quiet, almost ghost-like. But when he spoke, his voice was clear, soaked in something far deeper than mere sadness. We don't do this. Not here. Not like this. His voice cracked not from anger, but grief. His eyes glistened, and something about the way his shoulders hunched slightly forward gave the impression that this wasn't the first time he had felt the walls crumble from the inside. The others stared at him, stunned. Even Jungkook's fury faltered. Jimin looked between them, two of the people he had called brothers for over a decade, and something in him simply broke. He didn't shout. He didn't plead. He just let the pain flow out in the softest, rawest form. You think this is about lies, he said, but it's about the silence that came after. That's what hurt. He turned to Taehyung. You shut us out. We thought we lost you, and you let us believe it. Then to Jungkook. And you never let yourself feel afraid. You hide it behind anger. But I see you. I always have. Tears slipped down his cheeks. Not dramatic, not performative, just honest. The room fell into a stillness that felt sacred. Even the buzzing lights seemed to lower their hum. Jungkook's shoulders sagged. Taehyung looked away. No one spoke. Then Jimin did something that no one expected. He reached out. He reached for both of them, not as a peacemaker, not to fix what had shattered, but simply to say, I'm still here, even if everything else is broken. And that more than the screaming, more than the betrayal, was what made everyone cry. Backstage, beneath the roaring crowd, still unaware of the storm behind the curtain, three hearts stood trembling under the weight of all they never said. And nothing would ever be the same again. Don't touch me right now, Jimin. Jungkook's voice, though quieter than before, was laced with venom. He shrugged off the comforting hand Jimin had placed gently on his arm and stormed into the green room, knocking over a stool on the way in. The sound of the metal clanging on the tiled floor echoed like a gunshot in the silent tension that followed. Taehyung didn't follow him. He stood still, rooted outside the doorway, his chest rising and falling unevenly. His jaw was tight, his lips pressed into a thin, unreadable line. His hand shook slightly at his side, a tremor he didn't try to hide. Let him go, Taehyung said at last, voice hoarse. No, Jimin snapped, sharper than he meant to. This isn't something we keep running from. He turned on Taehyung, eyes wet but burning. You think you're protecting people by keeping secrets, Tae? You think pushing us away hurts less than telling the truth? You don't understand. Then make me understand, Jimin shouted, stepping forward. Because right now, all I see is a best friend who disappeared for months, came back pretending like nothing happened, and now stands there acting like he's the victim. Taehyung's eyes glinted with something dangerously close to rage, but it wasn't directed at Jimin. It was deeper, festering self-loathing, wrapped in years of pressure, performance, and pretending. You want the truth, he growled, finally stepping into the room, past the invisible line he had drawn between himself and the others. Fine. I was approached 6 months ago, not by some random exec, by someone high up. They offered me a solo deal, no strings, no schedules, full creative control, and I considered it. The room dropped into a suffocating silence. Even Jungkook, who had his back turned and fists clenched near the window, froze. Taehyung continued, his voice breaking. I considered it, because for the first time, I felt like I could breathe again. Like I wasn't being strangled by expectations, by image, by us. Jimin's lips parted slightly. So, you were leaving us? I thought about it, Taehyung said, more quietly now. I didn't sign anything. I didn't say yes, but I kept it to myself because I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, Jungkook finally said, turning around. His voice was low, but the pain behind it was raw, unforgiving. You hurt us by hiding it. You made me feel like I was crazy for noticing you were distant. Like it was my fault for asking too many questions. I didn't know how to explain, Taehyung said, his voice barely audible. You didn't try, Jungkook snapped. You just vanished. Emotionally, physically, you were gone. You stopped showing up to late-night studio sessions. You skipped out on dinners. You didn't answer my calls for 2 weeks, Taehyung. 2 weeks. Jimin sat down slowly, his face in his hands. His body trembled slightly, overwhelmed not by the volume of the argument, but by the magnitude of what was unraveling. Do you even want to be here anymore? He asked quietly, lifting his head just enough to meet Taehyung's eyes. Not with the group, with us, with me. Taehyung's expression shattered. Something behind his eyes caved in walls he had spent months, maybe years, fortifying. I never stopped loving you two, he whispered. But I didn't love myself when I was with you anymore, and I didn't know how to fix it. Jungkook looked like he had been slapped. The fury drained from his face, replaced by confusion, hurt, and the unfamiliar taste of betrayal that wasn't born of malice, but of heartbreak. So what now? Jungkook asked, voice trembling. I don't know, Taehyung admitted. I didn't come here to fight. I came here because I missed you, because I couldn't keep lying. Suddenly, the green room door creaked open. Namjoon stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable, but his presence immediately sobered the tension in the room. Behind him, Yoongijungkook and Jin hovered, their faces drawn with worry. You told them? Namjoon asked, looking directly at Taehyung. Taehyung nodded slowly. I had to. Namjoon entered the room, walking past Jungkook and Jimin, standing just a foot away from Taehyung. Do you still want to be part of BTS? He asked calmly, but with steel in his tone. Taehyung didn't hesitate. Yes, but not if it means losing myself. Namjoon stared at him for a long moment before turning to the others. Then we need to talk. All of us. No managers, no media. Just the 7 of us. Jin stepped in, crossing his arms. About everything? Everything, Namjoon said firmly. Because this isn't just about a solo deal. This is about trust. And right now, it's broken. Jimin looked up again, voice brittle. And what if it can't be fixed? Namjoon met his gaze, unwavering. Then we rebuild it. Or we walk away, knowing we tried. Outside, the fans chanted their names, unaware of the emotional earthquake just meters away. Inside, 7 lives hung in the balance, not as idols, but as brothers. And this was just the beginning. You think the world gives a shit if we fall apart? Namjoon's voice reverberated off the studio walls, sharp and shaking. They'll write headlines, make edits, milk our pain for views. But they'll never see this. He gestured to the circle of broken men before him. BTS, the global phenomenon, now sitting on the hardwood floor like shattered glass around a photo frame. Still beautiful, still recognizable, but no longer whole. Jungkook rubbed at his eyes, the red veins in them more vivid under the fluorescent lights. His voice came low, dangerously quiet. Do you know how many times I've stared at my own reflection and wondered if I was just the product? No one spoke. Not a person. Not Jungkook. Just what the industry molded. Perfect vocals, body, jawline. And if I didn't smile, if I didn't perform the brand, I was met with silence. Or worse, disappointment. Taehyung shifted slightly, the guilt carved deep into the curve of his shoulders. You never said any of this. Because you stopped listening. Jungkook shot back, venom creeping in. You, Taehyung, the one who used to pull me out of my lows. You ghosted me. And then you came back acting like we'd just rewind and sing a duet again like nothing fucking happened. Taehyung's eyes narrowed. Do you think I wasn't hurting too? You talk like I had it easy. No, Jungkook snapped. I think you had the luxury of disappearing, of detaching. The rest of us didn't. We had to keep showing up, while you vanished into silence and came back with a solo offer in your pocket. Jin stood up abruptly, the slap of his palms against his thighs ringing through the room. Stop, this back and forth, it's not helping. You're both hurting. You both have a right to be angry, but this? He motioned to the invisible chasm between them. This isn't healing. This is a bloodbath. Jimin, who had been silent for the longest time, finally looked up from his hunched position. His voice came out hoarse, like someone trying to speak through smoke. I think we all forgot how to be vulnerable with each other. We used to cry in hotel rooms together, confess fears after concerts. Now we're nothing but tight schedules and faked laughter. Yoongi leaned back against the mirror, exhaling slowly. Because the higher we climbed, the less space there was for being human. Hoseok, who had barely spoken since the circle formed, finally cracked open the bottle of water he'd been holding and took a long drink before speaking. I lied to you guys too. The words landed with a thud. I've been seeing a therapist for over a year. Namjoon blinked. What? I go twice a week. No one knows. Not the company, not even my family. Just me. And now you. Jimin's expression softened. Why didn't you tell us? Because I thought it would make me look weak, Hoseok admitted. I thought you'd see me differently. The sunshine who suddenly needed help getting out of bed some days. God, Jungkook muttered. Why did we all get so good at hiding everything? Yoongi gave a bitter laugh. Because we had to be legends, not people. Namjoon pinched the bridge of his nose, as if trying to hold back tears, or a migraine, or both. This is the first time in a decade that we're all being honest. Really honest. So let's do this. Let's put it all on the table. Jin hesitated, then took a breath. I don't know if I want to re-sign next year. Dead silence. Jungkook looked stunned. Jimin froze. Even Taehyung, already dulled by confessions, looked like he'd been punched. I've been thinking about it for months, Jin continued. The military service changed me, slowed me down, made me realize how much of my life has been swallowed by this machine. I love BTS, but I don't know who I am anymore. Namjoon walked to the center of the circle and sat down again, legs folded beneath him. His voice was low now, almost reverent. If this is the end, I need to know we didn't waste the beginning. Taehyung closed his eyes. This isn't the end, but it might be the first time we're letting go of the fantasy. What fantasy? Jungkook asked. That we were unbreakable, Taehyung said. That fame didn't change us. That we'd never betray each other. That nothing would ever shift. Jimin looked down at his hands. I hate that I needed a breakdown to finally talk like this. Yoongi reached out, hesitantly, and placed a hand on Jimin's shoulder. Then, without a word, the rest followed, one by one. No theatrics, no music swelling in the background, just the quiet, trembling weight of touch, of forgiveness, of choosing each other again, even in the wreckage. And then Jungkook did something no one expected. He stood, walked over to Taehyung, and pulled him into a hug. It wasn't warm, it wasn't instant. It was stiff and trembling and full of rage and grief, but it was a hug. Taehyung melted into it, shoulders shaking, lips pressed together to muffle the sob rising in his chest. I'm still mad at you, Jungkook murmured, but I missed you more. Taehyung's voice cracked. I missed you too, Kook. It wasn't a resolution, not yet, but it was a beginning. And maybe, for the first time in a very long time, it was enough. You should have told us the whole truth, Taehyung. The words didn't come from Jungkook this time. They came from Namjoon, and his voice was flat, colder than it had been in any of their previous confrontations. Everyone turned to look at him. He didn't shout. He didn't move. But the air shifted, suddenly laced with tension again, like a match had been struck in a room filled with gas. Taehyung blinked slowly. "I did." "No," Namjoon replied, staring hard. "You told us what happened, not why, and not who else was involved." Jungkook's posture straightened again. "Wait, who else?" Taehyung hesitated. His mouth opened, then closed. His chest rose and fell with a sharp breath. Jin stood slowly, arms crossed, his voice cutting through the rising static. "Are we still lying, Tae?" "I didn't want to drag anyone else into it," Taehyung said finally. His voice was low, almost fragile. "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters," Jimin whispered. "It always mattered." Taehyung swallowed hard. The solo offer. It wasn't just for me. It was for two of us. A stunned silence. "Who?" Yoongi's tone was laced with disbelief, eyes narrowing as if already trying to put the pieces together. "Who was the second name?" Namjoon pressed. Taehyung's eyes flickered toward the far corner of the room, and then they landed slowly, guiltily, on Hoseok. Time cracked. "What the fuck?" Jungkook exploded. "Hobie?" Hoseok didn't move. He just closed his eyes for a long moment, then opened them again. "He's not lying." "You knew?" Jimin's voice broke. "You knew, and you said nothing?" "It wasn't like that," Hoseok replied, his voice tight, defensive. "The offer came in at the same time as Tae's. We talked about it once, just once. I turned it down immediately." "But you didn't tell us," Namjoon growled. "You watched all of us fall apart and stayed silent." "I didn't think it would matter once I said no," Hoseok snapped. "I didn't think anyone needed more fuel on an already burning fire." "That's not your call to make," Jin shot back. "We made a pact, no secrets. You remember that? In 2015, hotel room. One promise, no secrets." Yoongi ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "This is insane. We're not just fighting anymore. We're revealing landmines that have been buried under years of rehearsals and photo shoots." Namjoon turned back to Hoseok, something unreadable in his expression. "You were always the one I trusted the most." Hoseok flinched. "Don't say that." "No, you were. You were the bridge when everyone else drifted. You were the one who kept this group from splitting like glass." "I still am," Hoseok said firmly. "Then why did you lie?" Jungkook's voice cracked. Not from anger now, but from the devastation that keeps coming in waves. "Why are we still not being honest with each other?" "I didn't lie. I omitted," Hoseok muttered. "Oh great," Yoongi scoffed. "Semantic survival? That's what we've come to now?" Jimin suddenly stood, knocking over the bottle of water beside him, his voice louder than it had been all night. "You all keep talking about honesty, but none of you have said what we're all thinking." Everyone turned toward him. Jimin's eyes shimmered with something more than tears now. Fury. Exhaustion. Despair. "We're not just broken. We're done." "No," Namjoon said immediately. "Yes," Jimin barked. "We can't keep surviving on nostalgia and shared trauma. You all want the truth? I'll say it. I don't want to go on stage with people I don't trust." "That's not fair," Taehyung said. "It's not?" Jimin laughed bitterly. "How many of you knew I was on antidepressants, or that I haven't slept more than 3 hours a night in months?" The room went still. "None of you asked," Jimin continued. "You only noticed when I messed up choreo or skipped a vocal line. Then it became my issue, not our issue." Jungkook stepped forward slowly. "Jimin, I didn't know." "I know," Jimin said quietly. "That's the point." Yoongi sat down, burying his face in his hands. "We were supposed to protect each other. And somewhere along the way," Jimin whispered, "we forgot how." The silence that followed was different this time. It didn't hum with tension. It didn't threaten to explode. It just hung there, heavy, like grief. Jin finally sat back down and spoke in the calmest voice any of them had heard all night. "So what now?" Namjoon stared at the center of the circle. "We take a break." Everyone looked at him. No schedules, no group content, no, "we'll be back stronger." Just a real break. We figure out who we are without this machine. And then, if we still want this, we come back. Jungkook's lips parted. "And if we don't?" Namjoon looked around at each of them. "Then we let it go with love. Not bitterness, not betrayal. With love. Hoseak sat down slowly, nodding. I think we need it. Taehyung didn't speak. He just wiped his eyes. Jimin looked to the window, watching the first light of dawn bleed into the sky. A break sounds a lot like peace, Yoongi murmured, or a chance to find it. And so, without a press release, or confetti, or hashtags, the biggest decision in their history was made in a room that smelled of sweat, tears, and a decade of dreams. Not with a bang, but with the silence that comes after finally telling the truth. Why did you even come back, Taehyung? The question landed hard and sudden, like a slap in the dark. It came from Jungkook, of course. It was always Jungkook who asked the things no one else dared to say out loud. His voice wasn't raised, but it was sharp, too sharp, like a knife honed on months of betrayal. Taehyung didn't flinch. He didn't look away. His face was tired, bags beneath his eyes, a faint bruise on his chin from God knows what, and a twitch in his jaw that hadn't stopped since sunrise. He had stayed after the others left the studio that night. Only Jungkook and Jimin remained with him, sitting in an ugly triangle of raw tension, the kind that made even silence feel too loud. I came back because I realized I was wrong, Taehyung said finally, voice low. Jungkook laughed without humor. Wrong about what? Us? Or the money they offered you? You think it was about money? I think it was about you, Jungkook snapped. It always is. Jimin stood at the window, arms crossed, back to them both. He didn't say anything yet, just listened. Face reflected faintly in the glass, as if he couldn't bear to look at either of them directly. Taehyung's voice cracked. I didn't choose the solo offer. I thought about it. I thought about everything about disappearing, about never returning, about finally being free. But I didn't take it. Not taking it doesn't make you innocent, Jungkook growled. You still let us think you were gone. You let me think you didn't care. I cared so much. It was suffocating, Taehyung said, rising to his feet. But I was drowning, Jungkook, and I didn't know how to ask for help without looking like I'd failed. You think we didn't feel that? Jungkook took a step forward, eyes blazing. You think I didn't stand in that dance studio every goddamn night asking myself why I wasn't enough to keep us together? Why the people I love keep disappearing? Then say it, Taehyung snapped. Say what you really want to say. Don't dance around it. You want to blame me? Do it. I can take it. You broke me, Jungkook hissed. You left, and I hated you for it. But worse, I hated me. Because I kept asking what I did wrong, what I didn't see, what I should have done to keep you here. Jimin finally turned from the window, eyes red, voice trembling. You know the worst part. You both think this is just about you. They looked at him. You think your pain is bigger than the rest of us, that your suffering justifies your silence. But the truth is, we were all burning, and we watched each other burn and said nothing. Taehyung looked down. Jungkook sat back, breathing hard. You want to know why I stopped talking? Jimin continued, stepping into the middle of the room. Because I was sick of screaming into a void. I'd text you, Tae, and get read receipts with no replies. I'd call you, Kook, and hear excuses. And then I'd walk into a rehearsal and smile like I wasn't crumbling. His voice cracked then. Not dramatically, not for show, just cracked. I was there, every night, waiting for one of you to say, let's fix this. But you never did. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then Taehyung said it. I kissed her. Jungkook blinked. What? The girl you were seeing. Last year. I kissed her. The air was ripped out of the room. Even Jimin staggered back, hand against his mouth. Jungkook stood slowly, his face unreadable, like it hadn't registered yet. Then he laughed a single, broken laugh. You're joking. I wish I was, Taehyung said quietly. Jungkook didn't punch him. He didn't scream. He just shook his head, tears slipping down his cheeks like they had been waiting behind his anger all along. You looked me in the eye. For months. Knowing that. And you said nothing. I didn't know you were serious with her, Taehyung said quickly. It was one kiss. Stupid. Drunk. And I regretted it the second it happened. Doesn't matter, Jungkook whispered. What matters is that you lied. Again. I didn't know how to tell you. Jungkook turned away. I don't know who you are anymore. Jimin stepped between them. Again. Always Jimin, the emotional middle. The one who broke quietly. Stop, he begged. Please. We don't come back from this if you keep going. You think we are coming back? Jungkook asked, voice hardening. You think there's some perfect reunion waiting for us after all this? I have to believe that, Jimin whispered. Because if I don't know who I am without you. Taehyung's legs gave way, and he sank to the floor, face in his hands. I never wanted this, but it happened, Jungkook said. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. There was no more screaming, no more outbursts. Just the crushing weight of everything unsaid now laid bare. Taehyung wept silently. Jimin sat beside him, arms wrapped around his knees. Jungkook stood alone near the exit, heart pounding like it wanted out of his chest. For the first time in his life, he felt like he couldn't tell if he was grieving a person, a relationship, or an entire lifetime of belief in something sacred. Behind them, the sun was rising again. But inside that room, it still felt like night. And none of them knew if dawn would ever come. You broke something in me, Jungkook said, voice hollow. And I don't know if it can be fixed. The room was dim now, lit only by the flickering overhead fluorescence that buzzed like dying bees. The studio hadn't seen light in hours. The sun outside had climbed and dipped again. The walls were soaked in the weight of everything that had been said. Taehyung sat slumped on the floor, head against the mirror, eyes red but empty. Jimin was beside him, unmoving, drained of every ounce of energy that had once kept them from collapsing completely. Jungkook stood near the door, staring at his reflection in the glass. His hands were shaking, not from anger anymore, from grief. I've forgiven a lot of shit in this group, he continued. Missed birthdays, broken promises, mental breakdowns no one ever talked about. But this? Taehyung didn't speak. This was betrayal, Jungkook said, taking a step forward. This wasn't a mistake. This was you choosing to hurt me and pretending it never happened. I wasn't in love with her, Taehyung whispered. That doesn't fucking matter, Jungkook roared suddenly, voice ricocheting off the walls like thunder. It wasn't about her. It was about me. You stabbed the one person who would have taken a bullet for you. Taehyung finally looked up, tears clinging to his lashes. I know. No, you don't, Jungkook snapped. If you knew, you wouldn't have looked me in the eye for a year and lied through your teeth. You wouldn't have hugged me on my birthday and acted like we were brothers. Jimin tried to reach out. Jungkook, don't. Jungkook cut him off. Don't try to fix this. Not this time. The door creaked open behind them. Namjoon entered with Yoongi, both of them frozen the second they saw the wreckage of emotions carved into the air. Jin followed last, eyes scanning the room like a doctor walking into an emergency ward. What happened? Namjoon asked, dread already thick in his voice. Jimin didn't look up. He told him. Jin's brow furrowed. Told him what? That he kissed Jungkook's ex, Jimin muttered. Namjoon's face went blank. Yoongi's lips parted, but he didn't speak. Jin cursed under his breath. The silence that followed was volcanic, boiling beneath the surface, threatening to erupt. I can't believe this, Namjoon said finally. After everything. Taehyung wiped his eyes. It wasn't about hurting him. It wasn't calculated. No, Namjoon said, stepping closer. It was just selfish. And that's the problem, Taehyung. You've been so selfish. For months. Years maybe. And we all let it slide. Because we thought you were just lost. But no, you were choosing not to care. Yoongi sat on a bench, hands steepled in front of his face. We've been holding this group together with tape and hope. I'm done hoping, Jungkook muttered. Those words didn't just hang, they sank. Deep. Final. Namjoon turned to him. What are you saying? I don't know, Jungkook said. But I'm tired of pretending this is just a rough patch. No one's pretending, Jin said. We're all broken. Then maybe we shouldn't keep pushing, Jungkook replied. Maybe we stop before we kill what's left of us. Don't say that, Jimin said, standing slowly. Don't even think it. Yoongi looked up. Or maybe he's right. That silenced the room again. I love you all, Yoongi said. But love isn't enough. Not when trust is gone. Not when we're bleeding on the same floor we used to dance on. Namjoon closed his eyes. You think we can't come back from this? I think, Yoongi said carefully, that coming back would mean burying the truth. Again. And I don't want to do that anymore. Jimin's voice rose. So what? We just walk away? We've been limping for years, Yoongi said. We lost something and none of us want to admit it. What did we lose? Jin asked. Jungkook answered, each other. Taehyung stood then, slowly, like he didn't think he deserved to stand, but did it anyway. His voice was shredded, nothing left of its usual velvet tone. Then let me be the first to say it, I'll go. Everyone turned toward him. I'll leave, Taehyung said. I'm the one who broke it, so I'll be the one to step away. Don't do that, Jimin whispered. Don't martyr yourself now. It's not martyrdom, Taehyung replied. It's responsibility. Jungkook stared at him for a long, unblinking moment. It's too late. Taehyung nodded. I know. Namjoon stepped back, as if the room had grown too small. We can't announce anything. Not yet. Not until we're sure. There's nothing left to announce, Jungkook said. The music stopped a long time ago. We just didn't notice. Yoongi stood, grabbing his jacket. I need air. Jin followed without a word. Namjoon hesitated, torn between leadership and helplessness, then quietly walked out. Only Jimin stayed, standing in the middle of the room, watching Jungkook and Taehyung like he didn't know who to follow, who to save. I never wanted this, he whispered. All I ever wanted was to stay together. Taehyung looked at him, eyes wet. Me too. But words didn't mean anything anymore. Not after this. Not in the room where music had once lived. Not when it had all gone so achingly quiet. You're not going to say anything, Hyung? The question was like an earthquake in the silent room. Jimin's voice, sharp with disbelief, cracked through the air and echoed off the concrete. His eyes were locked on Jin, who stood stiffly near the far wall, arms crossed, face blank as a battlefield after the war. Jungkook leaned against a speaker case, arms folded across his chest, his face pale, tired, and colder than any of them had ever seen it. Taehyung sat in the middle of the room, hands gripping the edge of a folded towel, knuckles white. Yoongi stood in the shadows, half lit by the flickering ceiling light, while Hosok paced silently near the window. Namjoon hadn't said a word. Since arriving, he stood by the door like a soldier waiting for orders. But no war worth fighting remained. Jimin stepped closer to Jin. You always have something to say. Always the voice of reason. The eldest. The glue. So what now? Are you just going to stand there and let us fall apart like this? Jin's jaw tightened. I've been watching us fall apart for 2 years, Jimin. Then why the hell didn't you do something? I did, Jin snapped, finally turning. I made the calls. I set up meetings with the company. I begged them to slow things down, to give us space, to see us not just as idols, but as human beings. Jimin stepped back. And? They didn't care, Jin said bitterly. As long as we kept selling out arenas, we could have died on stage and they'd have just edited around it. Then why didn't we stop? Jungkook's voice was quiet but lethal. We had power. We had each other. No, Namjoon said, stepping forward now, his voice low. We had responsibility. To the fans. To the legacy. To the lie. Taehyung stood slowly, finally speaking. It wasn't all a lie, wasn't it? Jungkook asked, his voice now shaking. The smiles, the promises, the brotherhood, all while we were crumbling behind closed doors. I thought we were building something eternal, but we were just feeding a machine. You think it didn't hurt me too? Taehyung's voice cracked like a brittle bone. I lost myself in the middle of all of this. I forgot who I was outside of the cameras and the fans and the king's schedules. But you hurt us, Hosok said, his voice trembling, breaking his silence at last. You hurt me when you didn't show up for that concert in Berlin. You left me to fill your verses, to answer questions backstage, to cover for you. I was having a panic attack in a hotel bathtub. Taehyung said. You think I wanted to disappear? Then say that, Jimin cried. Say that to our faces. Stop vanishing and expecting us to stitch your absence into the performance. Taehyung ran both hands through his hair. I couldn't say anything. I didn't want to be the one who broke BTS. You didn't break BTS, Namjoon said, stepping into the circle now. We all did. Slowly, one silence at a time. Jin sat down heavily on the edge of the low-stage platform. I used to think we were immortal. We were gods once, Yoongi said softly, finally stepping forward, voice ghostly. But even gods get tired. Jungkook stared at the floor, jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might shatter. I can't look at our music the same way anymore. I put everything into it. Every lyric, every breath. Now it just feels like a cover-up. It wasn't fake, Jimin said quietly. We meant it. Every song, every word, We lived it, even if it hurts now. Taehyung nodded. I still believe in the art, even if I lost faith in myself. Namjoon looked at each of them, like he was memorizing their faces. So what do? We can't keep going like this, but we also can't undo what we've built. We stop pretending, Jin said. No comeback, no fake smiles, no press statement saying we're focusing on individual activities. We tell the truth. Jungkook looked up. You want to announce the end? I want to announce the truth, Jin said. We're not ending, but we're not okay, and that's what needs to be said. Yoongi exhaled slowly. They'll crucify us. Let them, Jimin said. At least it'll be real. Namjoon nodded. A documentary, on our terms. No edits, no company interference. We show them who we really are. Let the world see what fame costs. And if it ends us? Jungkook asked. Then maybe it should, Namjoon said. Better to end honestly than to keep living a lie. Taehyung turned to Jungkook, his voice raw. If this is the last thing we do together, I need you to know, I'm sorry. For everything. Jungkook stared at him for a long time. I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Taehyung nodded. I'll wait. The room was quiet again, but not the dead air that had choked them before. This silence was different. It held space for grief, yes, but also for truth, for resolution, for something that maybe, just maybe, could still be salvaged. Outside, the sky had turned a deep indigo. The city lights blinked beyond the windows like camera flashes. Somewhere out there, the world still believed BTS was bulletproof, but in this room, they had already bled, and now they would show the world the scars. No cameras, Yoongi said as he entered the conference room at Hybe HQ. That's my only condition. He didn't sit down. He hovered near the door like he might leave at any moment. His hoodie was pulled over his head, dark circles visible even in the soft light. There was no makeup, no stylist, no fanfare, just skin, just exhaustion, just Yoongi, stripped of everything but his voice. Agreed, Namjoon said, already seated at the long table. This isn't for them. This is for us. Jin was next to him, arms crossed, eyes closed, like he was praying or refusing to witness any more than he had to. Hoseok paced near the window. Jimin leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers tapping against each other like he was counting seconds before something broke again. Taehyung came in silently, head lowered, baseball cap shadowing his eyes. And Jungkook was last. He didn't speak. He didn't look at anyone, just dropped into the empty chair furthest from Taehyung and stared at the untouched glass of water in front of him. The room held 7 souls and 10,000 unsaid things. We're not here to write a press release, Namjoon began. We're here to decide what we owe the world and what we owe ourselves. No, Jungkook interrupted. We're here because we're cowards. Everyone froze. Jungkook didn't raise his voice, but the tension in it could slice through steel. We waited too long. We lied too long. And now we're stuck between protecting the legacy or telling the truth. Yoongi nodded slowly. He's right. Taehyung spoke next, quietly, carefully. Then let's tell the truth. You don't get to lead this, Jungkook snapped, finally turning to him. You had your chance to be honest. Taehyung didn't flinch. I know. Jin opened his eyes. We can't change what happened, but we can control how the world hears it. Jimin leaned forward. No scripts, no bullet points, just us, sitting down, saying it like it is. Namjoon glanced at the others. A live broadcast? Too risky. Yoongi said. Exactly, Jimin said. That's why it'll be real. Silence fell again. Everyone was thinking about what it would mean. The press, the fans, the headlines, the collapse. The possibility that this might be their last act, not a final performance, but a confession. Hoseok finally spoke. I'm in. One by one, they all nodded. Even Jungkook, though his jaw stayed tight. Even Taehyung, though his hands were trembling. Namjoon looked around the table. Then we'd do it tonight. 4 hours later, the cameras were set up in one of the practice rooms, unlit, quiet, empty, no media team, no filters, just a single static shot. The members sat in a semicircle on the floor, dressed in black, as if for a funeral. In many ways, it was. Jungkook was the first to speak when the stream went live. This isn't an apology. This isn't a comeback. This is the truth. He didn't look at the camera. He looked at the floor. I don't know if I still believe in us. I want to, but I'm angry. At everything. At them. At me. At what we became. Yoongi went next. We've lived 10 years on a timeline we didn't write. We became idols to survive. Somewhere along the way, we forgot how to live. Jimin's voice was raw. There were days I didn't want to wake up, and I smiled anyway, because I thought if I stopped, I'd be the reason everything fell apart. Jin said little, but his words cut deep. I lost pieces of myself. I'll never get back. But I stayed because I loved them. Even when I didn't like them. Namjoon looked directly at the lens. We lied. To you, to each other. We made music while we were breaking. We said we were okay when we weren't. Hoseok looked at his own hands, trembling slightly. I used to believe I could dance my way out of anything. I was wrong. And finally, Taehyung. I hurt someone I love, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to hear it from me. The comments section exploded, but no one looked. Because in that moment, it wasn't about the fans. It wasn't about the company. It wasn't about saving face or writing history. It was about standing in front of the world, bruised and unfiltered, and saying, we are not bulletproof. The broadcast ended after 57 minutes. No closing line, no farewell, just silence. And then the screen went black. Backstage, no one spoke for a long time. Not even Jungkook. They just sat in the dark, side by side, sweat and truth clinging to their skin like the aftermath of a storm. No one knew what would come next. But for the first time in a long time, they weren't pretending. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Do you regret it? The question came from Jin. Quiet, direct. It came 2 days after the broadcast that shattered the illusion of perfection BTS had carried for a decade. They were in Yoongi's apartment, the one with the blackout curtains and no photographs on the walls. The city was outside, loud and burning, but inside, there was only quiet, broken by the occasional chime of a phone lighting up with chaos. The interview had gone viral within hours. Not just viral catastrophic. Debates raged online. Fan wars, news cycles, think pieces. The word disbandment trended in 50 countries. I don't regret telling the truth, Namjoon said, sipping from a cup of tea that had long gone cold. I regret waiting this long. Yoongi was leaning against the window, arms crossed, head bowed. It was never going to be clean. Not with the way we bled for this group. Jungkook sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, hoodie half-zipped, eyes distant. It feels like we just ended a relationship in front of millions of people. We did, Jimin muttered. He hadn't spoken since they walked in. His voice sounded small, like it had come from somewhere deeper than his chest. Hoseok ran a hand through his hair. My sister cried when she saw it, said it felt like a funeral. It was a funeral, Taehyung finally said, and the words made everyone freeze. He looked thinner than usual, unshaven. His eyes weren't red anymore, they were just empty. We buried a decade of our lives in one live stream. You're not wrong, Jin admitted. But we buried something that was already dead. All we did was stop pretending the corpse was breathing. Jungkook stood abruptly. So that's it? We just walk away? Let the company package this into some poetic ending and go live our lives like none of it happened? No, Namjoon said. But we don't keep forcing it either. Then what do we do? Jungkook snapped, pacing now. Do you understand how empty it feels? I gave my youth to this group. I sacrificed relationships, sleep, health. And now I'm being told to take time off? Rest? Like rest will make any of this feel okay. Yoongi's voice cut through the noise. You're allowed to be angry, Jungkook. Just stop pretending you're the only one. Jungkook turned on him, eyes wild. You think I don't know that? You think I don't see it? Jimin nearly died. Taehyung betrayed me. Namjoon broke under the weight of holding all of us together. We all cracked, but none of you are saying what we need to say. Jimin looked up, voice hoarse. And what's that? Jungkook exhaled sharply. That maybe, just maybe, we never really healed from anything. Taehyung stood then, facing him directly. And maybe healing doesn't mean staying together. Maybe it means stepping away without hating each other for it. Jungkook stared at him. You're always running. Taehyung didn't blink. And you're always holding on so tightly that you don't realize when something's already gone. Hoseok stepped between them. Enough. There was a beat of silence, like the whole room had sucked in air but refused to breathe. Jin broke it first. So what now? Namjoon spoke carefully. We take time. Real time. Not 2 weeks. Not a vacation. 6 months. A year. No schedules. No albums. No meetings. We go be humans again. Yoongi nodded slowly. And if we want to come back after that? Then we come back. Not because we're expected to, but because we choose to. Jimin wiped his eyes. What if some of us don't? Namjoon looked around the room. Then we honor that too. They sat in the quiet that followed, each processing the weight of what had finally been agreed upon. Not disbandment. Not quite. But not together either. Something liminal. Something honest. And then Jungkook, who hadn't stopped shaking since he stood, finally whispered, I don't know who I am without BTS. You'll find out, Jin said gently. We all will. Later that night, they walked out of the apartment together. No paparazzi, no fans, just 7 men walking down a side street in Seoul under the flickering yellow glow of street lamps. No handlers, no makeup, just bruises and hope stitched into silence. There was no announcement the next day, no press release, no farewell tour, just nothing. For the first time in over a decade, the world didn't know what BTS was doing. And for the first time, BTS didn't either. But somewhere inside that uncertainty was a strange kind of peace. Because finally, they were just people. And for now, that was enough. It had been 4 months. 4 months since the broadcast. 4 months since they sat on the floor like survivors in the aftermath of a disaster and admitted what the world had never expected to hear, that BTS was broken. And now, silence. There were no group schedules, no rehearsals, no comeback teasers, no V-Lives or hidden messages or cryptic tweets. Their social media accounts grew still. The fan theories slowed. The hashtags dulled. The world moved on. But they didn't. Jungkook stood on a rooftop in Busan, hoodie pulled up, cigarette between his fingers, a habit he'd picked up again in the 3rd month. No one had seen him smoke since he was 19. He hadn't posted a photo in weeks, hadn't answered any calls in days. His phone buzzed in his pocket again. He didn't need to check. He knew it was Jimin. Always Jimin. He didn't answer. Down in Seoul, Taehyung walked alone through a narrow alley in Itaewon, his face obscured by a mask and thick scarf. No one recognized him anymore, not just because of the disguise, but because the spark he used to carry was gone. There was no swagger, no rhythm to his steps, just a slow, dragging movement, like someone carrying a ghost on his back. He passed a mural of the 7 of them painted large across a brick wall near a cafe. Their faces, once proud and full of fire, stared back at him with smiles that no longer existed. Someone had spray-painted a crack across the middle of it, splitting the group in 2. He stopped. Just stood there, staring. And then he turned around and walked away. In another part of the city, Namjoon sat in a therapist's office. The blinds were closed. A notebook rested on his knee, blank except for one line at the top. What do I become if I stop being the leader? He hadn't answered the question. The therapist sat across from him, silent, waiting. Namjoon looked up. His voice was rough. I don't know how to grieve something that's still breathing. Meanwhile, Yoongi was in Daegu, in his old neighborhood, the one with the corner store and the park where he used to freestyle late at night. He hadn't written a lyric in months. Not since the night of the live stream. A local kid recognized him, cautiously asked for a photo. Yoongi smiled, then said gently, Not today. He bought 2 bottles of soju and drank them both in silence, sitting on a bench across from the basketball court where he first dreamt about music. The memories weren't comforting anymore. They felt like someone else's life. Jin had gone back to the countryside. No one really knew where. He didn't text. He didn't call. He posted a photo of a lake once. No caption, no location. Some fans guessed. None were right. Hoseok was the only one still moving. He danced, alone in rented studios, taught a few private classes, smiled politely at people who said, "You're still the heart of BTS." He'd nod and keep dancing. But it was Jimin who held the most weight. He was the only one who kept trying. He visited Jungkook twice a week, Even when the younger man didn't open the door, he called Taehyung on silent nights and left voicemails filled with nothing but breathing and music he used to like. He texted yoongijungkook. He emailed Namjoon book passages. He messaged Hoseok daily. "I'm proud of you." And once, he sent a single message to Jin. "Come back, we're not done." He never got a reply. One night, 4 months and 13 days after the live stream, the silence broke. Jungkook called Jimin. He didn't say hello. Just, "Do you remember our first concert?" Jimin was quiet for a second. Then, "Of course. Do you remember the part where you cried and said, 'We did it? We really did it?'" Jimin's throat tightened. "I meant it. I know you did." There was a pause. Wind on Jungkook's end. He was outside. "I hated you for not giving up on us," Jungkook said. Jimin swallowed hard. "I know, but I think I need you to keep doing it." That was when Jimin cried again, not because of pain this time, but because of the faint flicker of something he thought they'd lost completely: hope. The next day, they met. Just the two of them. No cameras, no staff, no company. They went to a tiny diner Jungkook used to love. No one recognized them. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. About the girl Taehyung kissed, the betrayal, the anger. About the silence between them that had grown louder than their music ever was. And then Jungkook said it. "I think I want to sing again." Jimin's lips parted. "What changed?" "I realized," Jungkook said slowly, "that even if we're not BTS anymore, I'm still me. And maybe that's enough." It wasn't a full reunion. They didn't send a group text, didn't meet in a studio, didn't announce anything. But 3 days later, Yoongi walked into a studio in Gangnam and found a notebook with new lyrics in Jungkook's handwriting. He said nothing, just sat down and added a beat. That same night, Taehyung showed up at Jimin's apartment with a guitar and a bottle of wine. No apology, just a whispered, "Play me something." And so Jimin did. The music was soft, hesitant, full of grief and memory and the sound of something coming back to life. Outside, the fans didn't know. They were still wondering, still debating, still grieving. But inside those quiet rooms, inside those broken hearts, something was beginning again. Not the group, not the legend, just 7 boys, still bruised, still unsure. But maybe for the first time in years willing to heal. Together.